Because we import students with 180 IQs and give them financial aid and scholarships and free bed and breakfast for 5 years and give them PhDs and put them to work in these think tanks to make this crap. Now, they don't know what they're doing. Just like that friend of mine, a family member of mine who came over to my house and could tell me why my orange trees are turning yellow. They're compartmentalized. They don't know. We do. What are you going to do with this information? Nothing? I can't sleep. I go to meetings. I put the stuff on back to school night. I put the stuff on the cars at the soccer games, at the softball games, at the baseball games, outside the churches. The pastors won't even have any part of this. They make fun of me. They think I'm crazy. You know who's crazy? People that deny that messing with children is evil. What did Jesus say about the guy that wanted to mess with the kids? He said it would be better for a millstone to be hung around your neck than to cast into the depths of the ocean. Now, a millstone was a big rock, probably a little bigger than those things that they used to crush the grain with. Can you imagine a rock that big around your neck and get thrown into the ocean? That wouldn't be very fun, would it? But that was about as an extreme thing as you could have done to somebody next to crucifixion. You don't mess with kids. And I cannot get that picture out of my mind of these beautiful young girls, literally kindergarten, first grade, they were being walked to school by what looked like their grandmas. And they were so proud holding their hands. They had these beautiful dresses on. You know, it's just, and I know what these people are. Now, by the way, there's no biblical verses on these iPads. There's cameras on these iPads. There's listening devices on these iPads. And there's all kinds of curriculum on here that would make you sick if you figured out what they're doing with this stuff. This is all algorithm developing, dossier developing. They're reading into the families. They're asking all kinds of questions on these devices, and these kids are just going to answer them. And they're developing all kinds of psychological profiles on these children. Common Core is all part of this. Common Core is designed to figure out who is brilliant enough to do things backwards and do it well. Because if you can figure out who's got that kind of mental capability, you're going to be on their team. The government knows this. That's why you're having all these homework meltdowns with these kids. Any of you having problems with your children with Common Core homework? I mean, it's a nightmare. You can't do the math, but the kids that have the type of brain wiring that can are the ones that they're going to suck into the think tanks to make the weaponry. And that's exactly what this is all about. Obama was the first president in United States history to come out and put the tax on your phone bill to pay for this nonsense. There's fiber optic connectivity. There's cables to every single wall in every school district in the United States. But the problem is people like Mr. Obama had determined that the last connection shall not be a cord but wireless. You think he's read this report? Maybe not. Maybe he's just a politician. Maybe he's a devil worshiper. Maybe he's just an idiot. But how do you get in the White House if you're an idiot? It doesn't happen. How do you get into the White House unless you're something else? See how these kids keep these things in their laps all the time? These are the Georgia Guidestones, ladies and gentlemen. Are any of you familiar with what these are? It's basically a plan that's laid out in stone. It's the New World Order stuff. All right. 5G. 5G is coming. You guys all hear about 5G? Yeah. It's the new generation of wireless. Do you see this right here? Do you see that? Do you see this? Are they the same? You know, the elite love to tell us what they're doing, and like in 1984, it's all in your face. It's all right in your face. That's a 5G radiation pattern. It's a beamforming antenna array illustration. And that's basically a three-dimensional image of what that signal, based on the frequency, modulation, and power level, will look like on certain types of equipment that can read it. This is a screensaver for Microsoft. If you bought a computer maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and you bought one with Microsoft, I think it was Windows 3, it came with this. That's the Seattle skyline. Where is everybody? Where'd everybody go? What's that funny thing in the sky? Why is it looking like the same thing as a 5G phased array illustration? You see, all this stuff's been going on for years, folks. Decades. While I was watching my neighbors smoke pot out of a gas mask when I was 10 years old, there was people doing this. Because they took out the whole generation of the kids that came before me with the drugs and the rock and roll. So they wouldn't pay attention to this stuff. And they took those kids that could figure out how to do stuff backwards even back then and put them in these laboratories, and they didn't know what they were doing. But they were doing it. Apple sold their first computer for $666.66. Are any of you aware of that? What are the odds of that? I mean, I've been alive for 52 years. I have never seen anything priced at that price. And I'm going to tell you something, if I did, I would run away from it. I'm not making this up. This company made a deal with the devil 40 years ago. They made the first production computer for personal use, and they priced it for $666.66. If that is not a deal with the devil, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what is. And of course, they have to take it a step further. Bite into an apple, 666.66. Their logo is an apple with a bite out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, we serve Jesus Christ, not the devil. These people serve the devil. They don't make any bones about it. Now, if you want to turn on the TV and watch a halftime show at the Super Bowl, when you watch all these Illuminati sex slaves perform their ritual, because that's what these things are, and they got you all cheering along with it, clapping along with it. No, you can't do that. And your kids can't be doing that. And your kids can't be going along with this part of it either. I'm telling you, folks, we are in deep trouble. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is not a monetary issue. This is not this goes to the core of our existence. This goes to the core of this creation that became from a flash of light in a billionth of a second into something that has 75,000 miles of circulatory system in our body. When you thwart the creation of human beings, it's one thing to kill a baby in the womb. That is brutal and grotesque and horrific and murderous and evil and vile. But when you sterilize people and you prevent that billionth of a second indigo flash of light that made everyone in this room, that's from the pit of hell, ladies and gentlemen, because every one of us in this room has eternal life. And it's being taken away from people that never had the chance to be born. And that is evil. You can't get any more evil than that. Well, maybe you can. Anybody in this room familiar with mythology? Artemis was a goddess of fertility. This company was started by a gentleman named Steve Perlman, and he was an offshoot of Apple technology. He was the chief scientist for Apple. So what does he do? He goes out and hangs his own shingle and starts his own company called Artemis. Now, if I was going to make some sort of wireless company, maybe I would call it like, Spot On Wireless or Broadcast Band or something. No, they call it the goddess of fertility, Artemis. That's what their devices look like. It's an amazing device. These are going to be everywhere. Microcells are coming. And because of assembly bills and Senate bills in the state legislature, the local municipalities will not have any say-so in where they're going to go. And that's all based on erroneous, illegal interpretation from a San Diego appeals court of the Telecom Act. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't fight the deployment of these. Your city attorneys are lazy cowards if they won't fight it. That's a whole other discussion. But they're going to put these things in front of your house, on your telephone poles, on your light poles, and on all the public right-of-ways, and there isn't going to be anything you can do about it if you let your city open up these things for the highest bidder. They're coming. And by the way, the logo they're going to have on them is this inverted uterus. This is all right in front of your face, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sitting up here with some eternal truth that was written thousands of years ago. Nothing's changed in here. And I'm standing here looking at the products of people that disobey that. And now we're looking at the people that rejoice in its disobedience. Do you see a problem here, folks? Now, if I was putting my life savings on boxcars at the craps table, I'd have enough money to buy the Bellagio and the Wynn and the Mirage and all the way up to the Golden Nugget by now. What are the odds of this? What are the odds? This is not a coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. Artemis is also the goddess of the hunt. Let me explain to you what beamforming technology does. What it does is it locks onto your device and it forms a little P cell around it and it hones in on you almost like you're stuck in a laser scope with a sniper aiming at you the whole time. Where do we keep these devices? In our pockets, in our breasts. Where do the kids keep these devices? In their laps. So now we have beamforming systems aimed at the eggs. That's the light that shines at conception. You know, I went to high school and I fell in love a couple times, and I went to college and I fell in love a whole bunch of times. And I finally managed to really fall in love when I met my wife. And boy, it was like bringing in a 747 without landing gear. It is hard to find a mate. And it is hard to find somebody that you love. And then when it comes time to really settle down and have a family, it gets expensive. And this will destroy everything that two people that fall in love can expect to have. And yet it's all in your face. Now, maybe there's some people here that like music. U2. There was a group out back in 1984 called The Alarm. They were a Christian band. And they had more talent in the same sound as U2, and they chose U2 instead. They established Bono, and now he's a big UN hitman and globalist and everything else. But they were up in Cupertino at Apple's corporate headquarters for the iPhone 6 rollout, the 6th version of their iPhone. And on the same day, they released an album. It was U2's 13th album. And on this album, the title cut was Lucifer's Hands. So you got U2 up there releasing their 13th album at Apple's corporate headquarters, and they're playing a song called Lucifer's Hands, folks. Now, I don't mean to keep pounding this, but I mean, how much more of this are we supposed to take? Are we just supposed to go home and watch a ball game? But you can if you want. You're just not going to have your grandchildren. This is the Seattle skyline, ladies and gentlemen. And remember I showed you that beamforming 5G symbol? Well, there's another thing to this right here. You see those 3 arches? I want you to pay close attention to those. This is very important. I'm going to try to find it here because there's a lot of information on this. Just bear with me here for just a moment. We'll get to it. Those 3 arches, these are all the public officials, by the way, that have completely ignored everything, all the way down, all the way from assemblywomen, senators, school district employees, local business people, principals. I mean, this is, I could probably have another 500 faces on here. There's the pastor of the church that thinks I'm crazy. He made jokes about me he's gone, by the way. He's not there anymore.